What's up, everybody? All right, good evening, everybody. Gotta give everybody just a second here to pile in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. About 5 minutes, and we'll go ahead and get going here. So. What's up, those of you on Discord? Go ahead and start streaming. We got 12%. That sucks. Yes, I will chart SPY for tomorrow. That's part of our prep. Is usually we're going to go over the news, major ETFs, and then the watch list, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's go ahead and fix this chart. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go ahead and get to it. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Discord, there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to go over the news to recap today. And as I go over the news, we're going to go over the major ETFs and what they look like. And then, of course, what we can possibly expect going into tomorrow. So right off the bat, the Dow was kind of the headliner here as far as taking a new low. The Dow fell the furthest at 2.09%, just below 34K, that mark that we talked about this morning. The S&P also took a pretty major hit. This was also due, or mostly due, to the Delta variant fears. Now, this is something that's already caused travel restrictions between us and Europe. So the implications of a virus or potential lockdown could frighten the markets, even though we have earnings season coming up. Nobody wants to get caught in that. So let's go over. Well, I was going to say one of the few sectors that were green were semiconductors. AMD held up 0.8%, but Nvidia, and honestly, Nvidia really was the reason why semiconductors held up. And that's just because it rebounded after just a absolute onslaught from those highs. So one of the bigger runners today, CYTK, soared 40% after the biotech company published data on its phase 2 clinical study of CK-274. They are working with patients with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So as far as closing prices here, we have the S&P down 1.59%, The NASDAQ down 1.606%, the Russell down 1.51%, and the Dow down 2.09%. As far as earnings here, IBM, International Business Machines, reported better than expected Q2 profits after the bell, cited higher cloud sales and improving operating margins. EPS 2.33 versus the 2.29 estimate, so beating that estimate there. Revenue was up 3%, 18.7 billion that year, but they did lose 0.71% in after hours. So if we take a look at IBM here, actually looks like that article was, or this was written a little bit early. Actually, they have rebounded here. It looks like here in after hours. Nice. They did fog apparently, and have rebounded from that 134 level. So that's honestly some good news as far as potential catalyst going into tomorrow. So I'll keep my eyes peeled on IWM. It did finish relatively strong here, but their earnings looked pretty good. So AutoNation posted all-time record quarterly earnings this morning. The company anticipates sustained demand for new cars in 2020. EPS was $4.83, guys, versus the 2.85 estimate. Revenue is $7 billion, up 54%. Year over year. AN moved up a 3.65%. You guys can see here, definitely cruising up here. I expect to see more momentum, and I think this is one to keep on our watch list. Watch for analysts to start laying down price upgrades for this stock here in the future, so if they haven't already. All right, so let's do this. I'm eating cereal. All right. I think a lot of you guys had already talked about this. So it's back to the drawing board for Bill Ackman's SPAC, the PSTH, Pershing Squared Holdings. CEO made the announcement Monday morning that Ackman cited issues raised by the SEC with several elements of the proposed transaction as the main reason for the charge. This means Ackman will use his own hedge fund to buy the 10% he intended for PSTH. Ackman will reset the clock. He'll have 18 more months to find a conventional SPAC merger. Investors have mixed feelings, but some love the unique deal structure. Others weren't stoked about the whole deal, buying 10% of UMG and then getting another deal. So they closed at $20.39, down 1%. So other than that, we did see a couple of random runners today in the penny market, but we're going to go ahead and look at the major ETFs here. Yeah, man, we have, I don't know if anybody saw, there's fires in Oregon again, about 300,000 acres here, so. Excuse me. All right, so let's go over SPY. All right, so this was, and it's so funny, this is why I love leaving these targets here. So in pre-market this morning, I talked about the potential of breaking this level here of 426 and continuing obviously to the downside, and that's exactly what we saw. Of course, we saw this little bear flag here, continuation to downside, bottoming out at that 422 level. Okay, so if you see this and it doesn't break to the downside, it's not going to, and just wait. So what you can do in these situations when you see this type of consolidation is you see where you're getting those rejections. Usually you're going to catch this on the third bounce. and you see where you're getting your bounces. And then from there you can find and mark out those alerts so that way you don't get caught in anything. So but anyway, SPY hit that 422 level and rebounded right back up to where it hit yesterday. So here's the deal. As far as moving into the rest of the week, guys, I can't predict whether or not the Delta variant is going to become something to worry about. I don't know, but I do know that it will affect the market in a negative manner. It depends on if you're a bull or a bear, but it will affect the market to the downside. That being said, with SPY, and of course this is the 5-minute time frame here, but looking at the hourly here, you do see we got a relatively strong bounce towards the middle of the day. Why is that? Probably because there's still the anticipation for earnings season coming up here. It doesn't mean it's going to be good, but it means that people are anticipating it, and the market is likely going to hold SPY up. So here's the deal on SPY. So there's a very, very, very small gap at 430.30 to 431.35. So you have this little gap here on the hourly, and right now we're trending underneath that line that we broke this morning at 426. I would like to see tomorrow SPY push above that HMA and also reclaim that 50-day EMA, right, or the 20-day EMA. That's that blue line right here. Reclaim that. So I expect a little bit of chop in the morning, depending on how we move in pre-market. If we get a gap up over this price mark, then it's a whole different story. I may end up taking it short, fill that gap, and then see whether or not we get a nice bounce. If we get a bounce, I may take it to the upside for a gap and go. So my recommendation here is 426.35 to set an alert there or a level there, and as well as 426.85, because once we claim those two levels, we should see a retest of this previous support or downtrend that we had before. And I'll go ahead and mark that out. So you can see that pretty much, even if we were to shoot straight out tomorrow and just go straight up, we would have very little chance to fill that gap. But we do have a chance to hit that 428.85 level. That is a real probability. So I'm going to go ahead and set a few alerts here. Oops. And of course, it's super important to take a step back out, or take a step back and see how we've, of course, finished the daily here. This is obviously not a super bullish candle. You pretty much have that laid down from 431.66 all the way to that 422 level that we talked about. 422, and then finishing the day at 424. That was the 50-day EMA. Now take a look at this, guys. So if before I even say anything, a lot of you might already notice, but I'm going to go ahead and mark out all of the different times that SPY has bounced off of its daily 50 EMA. And why this is a pretty important, Monday was a pretty important day as far as movement on SPY. So the question is does this show enough strength? Which, if you look at the volume here, it is quite substantial, and it does mimic previous dips on SPY. You can see previous leg downs like this where volume spikes. Yes, I know. Spikes really, really high. Another thing here on the RSI, there's this weird rejection point, and you can see it right here on the RSI that we are infamously seeming to bounce off of. So we could see a little bit of a flat day or a bit of a bounce, but if we get that bounce, it would be in anticipation for earnings coming up. So if it's going to come, I think it comes tomorrow. And again, those levels that I talked about, a reclamation of 426.75, those are just the first levels that I would like to see reclaimed. But eventually, I want to see the gap get filled at 431.24. And of course, a couple levels there. The 430 level is going to be that initial and most tough level to break, psychological number there. But once that gap gets filled, you're more than likely on that hourly time frame going to be holding or hitting that 200-day EMA. And as you can see here, it does show quite a bit of respect when it's breaking to the downside or the upside. Can I show how I set up alerts on TradingView? Yeah, so here's how I normally how I do it. So if I'm looking at SPY, right, and I want to find the correct trend as far as where we could be trending, or I want to make sure I don't miss a break in trend or break of a certain level, I'm going to mark out these levels either with a line. If you want, you don't even have to use a line, but I usually am going to use these linear rays here, or these horizontal rays here. And what you do is you left click, add alert on the horizontal ray, and you'll see there's a couple different options. You have SPY, etc., crossing up, crossing down, greater than, less than, moving up. I have it crossing because obviously I just want it to touch. You can leave it so that it never turns off, so you can have once per bar, once per close, and all those obviously can be of great use. And you can actually apply these to the volume, you can apply it to the MACD, you can apply it to the RSI, you can apply it to the TTM squeeze. Pretty much anything that's on this chart, for the most part, you can add an alert. If that answers your question, Sam. Can you check your audio? It's coming in really low. Oh, thanks, Robert. Sorry, I just looked at it. I will take a look at LVS. I did notice that DraftKings, GDog, a lot of those online betting places, they held up oddly enough. Hold on one second. Yeah, of course, Sam, not a problem. Okay, so as far as SPY is concerned, again, there is the chance that we have that bounce, but a rejection at that 426.75 level would likely have us continuing to the downside. So curious to see how that plays out. Looks like a little breaking down trend here as well. Okay, so let's go over the Qs really quickly. Ooh, hot mess. Tell I had a lot of alerts set on this thing. And something also I want to bring to your attention here is, with the Qs and all, look at the previous bounces when it does have the downtrends that it does. You do see a little bit of an uptrend here, retesting almost the level that it broke, and then ending up breaking to the upside. So right now we are retesting the level that we broke. So if we end up seeing a reversal, I think we're going to see a gap down tomorrow. And I'll discuss why we have Zoom puts, or Zoom calls rather, swinging against the QQQ here in just a second, because that's one of the main ones on my playlist. Fiverr is on my playlist. And of course, if there's any of your favorite stay-at-home stocks that, and I hate even saying this, but that could benefit economically from any lockdowns or anything restrictive, business-wise, would obviously be good buys. Okay, so anyway, with the Qs, we're going to want to see a break of 356 quite simply, with the target of 357.85. That's that 200-day EMA. But If we break that level, more than likely we're going to see a correction and a retest of 358.75, which is that previous day low there that we ended up breaking to the downside. So again, we did break kind of out of this pattern here, bouncing off of the 352.31 level. So if we end up getting a rejection and we end up anywhere around 354.23, I may take this to the downside. But again, if you look oversold, this is the hourly, and also very, very high volume. So interesting setup here on the Qs as well. But also if you take a look one last time here, this is something that I went over this morning in pre-market, is the fact that the Qs had broke our support on the daily that we had pretty much running all the way back from May 19th. So with that being said, and looking at the Qs, it was pretty pivotal that we had some type of correction, which we didn't. But on the daily, we do have a pretty large gap from 355.36 all the way to 357.61, which could present the illusion that stocks are going to end up running into earnings rather than pulling back on Delta variant scares. So that is something to pay attention to as well. So as far as the Dow, so the Dow seeing an extremely big pullback here, excuse me, but it saw a really gnarly pullback today, one of the fiercest going back until May 11th. We haven't seen a pullback like that since May 11th, but as you can see, the little linear deviation line that I have here is seemingly where we bounced off to a T, and I haven't touched these lines. As you can see, they're still scattered about, marking trends, but right now bouncing off that linear deviation, that's to be expected, but I would expect more, I would say at least consolidation on this channel. But anywhere below yesterday's low, I would say that we will more than likely go and revisit this support. And let me mark it out again. There it is. So I would suspect that the first leg down would have the Dow pressing this support here, and I'll mark that out for you. And as you can see, that's not too far, but if we break that, we'll see that secondary support at that 332.55 mark right there. So the Dow not looking good today, but definitely in need of a relief bounce. So we could have a dead cat bounce tomorrow, or just a little bounce, and then see continuation to the downside. Sorry, I just wanted to look at this in after hours. Oh my God. Damn. Okay. Anyway, so we have the IWM. Talked about this morning, guys. This is, it is so funny because we have all of these earnings coming up, and you're just, everybody and their mother is expecting a bounce, which is, I expect it too. I see it coming. But we are seeing that as we descend towards this last bounce level, and what is the daily 200-day EMA, it's not quite seeing the same parabolic pullback towards there, but a little bit of just kind of like shaky, high volume today, and not much conviction to the downside. If you go down here to the hourly time frame, you can see we get a gap down, an attempt to go finish and fill the gap. That attempt was stifled and an immediate rejection, but it actually held that very same level that it broke previously. And so here in pre-market, we're going to want to see that gap get filled at 214.85 and push that 215 mark. If we can push that 215 mark, I think that I see this descending resistance right here coming off of these highs. I can mark those for you as well. So there is a chance that we see IWM after it fills that gap just a few points above that at 215.85 before we finally see a little bit of rejection, because you do see the IWM is having did rather well about holding this level up today. So pins looks good tomorrow. Okay, we'll take a look at it. Savania, no shit. VXX. So this one popping up. I usually don't go over the VXX, but I wanted to bring it up today because if you can't, tell me what you see, and I'll probably tell you you're right. Because if you see the same thing that I see, you know that we could be in trouble. Let's go back and look. Where is COVID? That's way far away. I think this is COVID right here. Yeah, so that's COVID. So one of the differences here is we have had splits, obviously, but the volume on VXX is crazy. And I think if we took a step out here to the weekly, and like I said, there's been splits and it's a bit diluted, but the volume is still absolutely insane for what we're used to seeing on the VIX. And today was one of those days. And I think that even though we ended up getting a pretty stiff rejection, which we may see a retest and a pullback all the way to that 3250 level before we finally see it bounce. And then obviously with the rest of the markets that might get that bounce that we talked about, we could see the VIX running inverse to the SPY and whatnot, retest and then finally bounce towards the end of the day. But like I said, guys, this is all climate based. The technical market looks bearish, but we also have the underlying sentiment of earnings season, which obviously is a bit bullish. So okay, so I think that's it for our major ETFs. And I'm going to go over some of the plays for today. So starting with Microsoft, I'm not sure if anybody took Microsoft at the bell, but this is basically what I was watching here, that we broke that support in pre-market, pushed back up, retested, and then ended up dropping well below that hourly 200-day moving average, where I thought that we may continue to see another leg down, but in fact we did not. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me, I appreciate it. Sorry. Almost just passed out. I got really dizzy when I said that, or when I yawned. 275.75 on Microsoft seemed to be a brick wall today as we were trading. And if you, this 5-minute chart is just ridiculous. I mean, you even make like what looks like a mini Head and Shoulders. You make a little tiny new low, but you never really break. But what did end up catching my eye is that even though the markets did pull back and we did see that choppiness, Microsoft just held this range and did finally bounce up here. But if you pull, what was that?
Ellie.
That was Ellie? Oh, sorry. My daughter sounded like a full-grown woman. So perfect. There we go. So as you can see, on Microsoft here, using and this is the 5-minute, guys, but I'm showing you the smaller time frame first. So Microsoft is needing to break that 278.22 level, and this would go along with my theory on the Qs. Now, what normally happens anytime we break a major support, a lot of times we go for a retest. But that doesn't always stick for, that's not always with dynamic, right? So dynamic being these right here, but also our linear support. So there is the potential that we could see, and I'm gonna pull this one right here. Yeah, there it is. So there is the potential that we break and retest the 379.50 level tomorrow on Microsoft with a break and downtrend. Otherwise, we will see a rejection or a gap down, and anywhere below that 200-day EMA, it's going to go and attempt to break 275.82. So another trade that we took, this one ended up going red on me. Let's see here, where are we at? So let's go to new. I ended up cutting it not for a terrible loss, but it didn't end up playing out the whole way through. So we had a gap here to 92.25, and we started to push that with crazy volume. And as you could suspect, when I saw that volume, I immediately got pretty pumped up. Volume is always our number one indicator, but in this case, it failed me. And that's why we have stop losses set in place before we even take the trade, or we have those set in place evaluating the price action as we approach our targets. But with new, that one ended up rejecting 90.75 and did not succeed and filling the rest of its gap. So anywhere above 91.13 tomorrow, we may see continuation, but and maybe a break and downtrend as well, because Nucor even had some relatively good runs here as of recently, but then to be stifled and reversed. So anyway, let's see here. Zoom, one of probably the funnest plays of today. I had a good time trading this one, and I can show you why. So one of my marks with Zoom, and one of the things that I was noticing was there was a lot of stay-at-home, Delta variant stock talk, like what stocks are going to hold up. And of course, Zoom always is like the first one that I think about. So right around the time that I'm thinking about this, Zoom decides that it wants to parabolically bounce off support. So I already catch it relatively late, and I'm a little bit bummed, but I just simply set a second entry, and it was right around where these wicks were. I knew that there was that's where previous rejections had occurred at 350.75. So I set a pretty, and I think I ended up taking a relatively early entry. I think I was watching the 1 minute down here, right around here. I was watching the 1 minute, and it just was kind of sitting underneath this level, and so I ended up grabbing that 350 call, and then it just bounced right up immediately, and we held up rather well. I added a 355. And one of the reasons why I'm in this trade is due to the fact that we have a lot of things closing back down. And this could actually influence businesses to roll back their plans on bringing back people into the office. I know that my kids have already been asked to wear masks on the bus, as well as potentially mask in class. And I'm just speaking here from, I'm not, there's an opinionated, I'm just telling you guys what is happening from my perspective, so that could potentially influence the market regardless of anybody's opinion. It's the investors as a whole who are really going to be the deciding factor on whether or not that's going to lead the market to the downside or have us trending back down. But anyway, great trade on Zoom here. Wait, hold on one second. Why am I? Yeah, hold on, sorry. I was like, why does it look like that? So funny enough, so I'm curious to see, because we saw $400 calls. And one of the reasons why I thought that was rather interesting was because we have a gap, and it's just the littlest, tiniest gap right here at 391 to 395. So a little $5 gap sitting up there. This is, for the most part, a reversal candle, right? So sellers take it down. This 200-day EMA on the daily, right, providing that bounce level, really strong bounce all the way up from 343 all the way to 355. So there is the likelihood, and I know that Charlie Munger and a few other outspoken public stock stars, if you will, are fans of Zoom. So we're in early, and those of you who have contracts, I will take one of these contracts and let it go red. And I know that sounds really unusual, but I have multiple contracts. I have a debit spread almost, if you will. I've got the 375 or the 350 strike, the 355 strike. I also have that 375 strike as well on Zoom. So I've got multiple different strikes on Zoom, but if we end up breaking those targets that I talked about today or tonight, right? So if we end up breaking downtrend, so that's going to be around 360. If we break 360, that could very well allow Zoom to at least go test the 371.60 level. And this week, you were in a call, Zoom 355 expiration 723. Are you in heavy? Do you have multiple, or are you in one? That sounded singular. I am in, but I feel like it's one call. Okay, you're in one call. So if you're in one call, right, you don't really have the liberty of hedging or catching the reversal and then cutting your call. If whatever the case may be, you don't really have. It's not a very malleable position. That being said, if this thing gaps up, right, and here's what I'm thinking. I could be wrong. Here's what I'm thinking on Zoom. I think that tomorrow morning we see a gap up, and we'll know obviously in pre-market whether this will play out. But I think that we see a gap up around 360. Now you guys, if you didn't see here in pre-market, we already shot up to 359.86, just a few cents away from being in the money on on Zoom. And all that to be said is the calls that we already have for 355, those are already in the money. I'm really happy about that. But I may even hold them, right? If this continues to break trend, and this is what's going to happen here. And if you're in weeklies, you can roll out until next week or something of that nature. That's what I would likely do. But in my opinion here, if Microsoft gaps up, which I'm guessing it will, if you go here to the hourly, I would suspect that it is going to gap up above this resistance and then retest it. Now, the one thing I don't like about gaps is, for the most part, they get filled. So if you are in a 355 call, and this thing just doesn't absolutely send it at the bell, and if it has a big ass gap below it, I might go ahead and trim majority of those contracts on the gap up. If it opens up flat and just goes and just resumes trade as if nothing ever happens, but there you go, big stepper. The first 5 minutes is going to tell. Well, I would even say the first 15. And the only reason why I would say that big step is because I think that in between the range that we have here and resistance could provide a little bit of chop before we finally see that leg out. And like I said, 360 break, 361 break, that's likely going to be the first confirmation that we see for Zoom. So I think Zoom has a good setup. I think a lot of your stay-at-home stocks, Fiverr included, you saw this one make a similar move to the upside. This one I'm not as familiar with. The daily looks absolutely like a hot can of garbage, but otherwise it got a really strong bounce here today. But if you have a small account, or you're building your account, or you're practicing, it's okay to, if you like a Zoom in the morning and you see it start making that strong move to the upside, or if it goes and retests pre-market lows, right, and then bounces off of them and starts picking up volume and starts trending back up to break pre-market high, then that may be an opportunity to add to your position. So it's just going to be a matter of evaluating the position after we evaluate a gap up. So one sec. NVIDIA. Okay, so I think I talked about this. The pre-split basis is, I believe, happening tomorrow. I don't know. I think it reverses. I think I talked about that this morning on the potential of NVIDIA just absolutely ripping. I believe that Justin in the group caught that one. It does have a very ugly, we'll call it an inverse head and shoulders. That's the nice thing to call it. But anyway, it has an inverse head and shoulders. And right now I think that above the 767, I would say 765, but 764, 767 level, Zoom or NVIDIA will likely break to the upside, but and trend into the 780 level, which obviously is going to be priced a little bit different in the future. But looking at the finish here, 767 is that first mark on NVIDIA tomorrow if we do continue up to the upside with, and I know it sounds crazy, but with the potential target of 789 or 790. So I hope that is the inverse, right? Because NVIDIA dumped into the split. So I'm hoping that NVIDIA trades up after the split and then dumps. It's not going to trade up forever, you know. I mean, but if you guys actually are in our Discord, I posted a link that the number one talked about stock right now on Wall Street Bets is NVIDIA. And if you guys want, I'll pull that up really quickly and I'll read you guys the majority of that article. So NVIDIA is the most discussed Wall Street Bets as chipmaker shows off ray tracing tech DLSS on ARM CPU. NVIDIA corporations became the talk of Wall Street Bets forum Monday after a company-specific development. NVIDIA soars on Wall Street Bets charts was the most commented with a percentage volume at 8.5%. And so it seems like, and they also have a ridiculous price target from a couple of different analysts coming in. So obviously we can't know until we get there, but I do have a couple different levels. Like I said, tomorrow I may be watching the 761 or today's high as a potential entry on NVIDIA if it doesn't gap up, which it may around 767.24, which we could play the gap down and then play the bounce, but we'll see what happens when we get there. So all right, excuse me, I am really tired tonight, guys. I think that we need to go over NIO. So this was the peculiar place that we were in on the charts that I was talking about this morning. And funny enough, I expressed my disappointment in the fact that NIO had decided to go ahead and take off without me, or rather gap down when I expected it to hold and then potentially take that break. Now, it pretty much hit my target of 40.43. Now, I was looking to see if it would potentially break that target, but it decided to go ahead and give us a bounce. And if you look at the 4 hour, it wasn't just a bounce, but it was an engulfment candle. It did have very good volume. It does have quite a bit of room on the RSI. So tomorrow, I think it's worth watching, especially above 44.40, where I think that in trend, we could see the $45 level. And I think we would have to evaluate price action there as we go. But where I'm going to be setting some alerts As far as tomorrow's movement is, of course, and the most obvious, 44.50 level here. And then right there we have another level at 44.85 that we can possibly mark out as potential levels to watch. So, okay, so I think that's about it. I don't have really anything else that I'm watching at the moment. I'm just kind of waiting to see how things open tomorrow at 5:30. I'm going to be up really early, so I'll be curating my playlist as we go into the day tomorrow. So, and kind of evaluating where some of this unusual flow that we got in could be heading. I did see some BA calls coming in, which BA just has absolutely shit the bed, but doesn't mean that on a technical basis that it's not going to go and see a potential retest, which would likely put it back up for the 214, 215 retest, but not much more than that. And this one is just absolutely shit the bed, and I'm waiting for the 205 break to potentially put it back down into the $200 range, guys. I think that we could see a steady and methodical dump on a lot of different stocks to pull them back. And as you can see, American Airlines, a lot of vacation, cruise line, carnivals, all of them seeing a little bit of little shaky there. Shake Shack. Sorry, I just wanted to see if they're getting beat down because of the coronavirus. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go over you guys' request, and then I'm just going to go ahead and get ready for tomorrow, guys. I think what I'm going to do, if you guys are in the Discord, and you guys are free to talk to me, because literally it'll be open, so what filters do I use? What do you mean, what filters? I don't know. Let me know what you're talking about, and I can possibly answer that question. If you're talking about camera filters, none. I use none. Also, this is my fiance's workshop back here. I don't have mannequins in my office. That's her half of the office. Filters. What's my crypto prediction? You guys can hop on YouTube. I'll do any requests that you guys have on here. All right. So hey, I was charting. Saw EFI is having a high squeeze and went in and lost 5%. What have I should have done better? I don't remember the. All right, I'll go ahead and get started with these. Okay, so right off the bat, we've already pretty much gone over SPY. So what we're going to go do here is we're going to go over, looked like that first request was Apple. All right, so let's start on the daily. Yuck. Oh boy. So all gaps get filled, and Apple has a gnarly ass gap down in the 90. That's why $90 puts always come in every time Apple trends down, because people think it's going to go back into the 90s below 100. And fill that crazy ass gap. But anyway, so in anticipation for earnings coming up, now as you can see, we have run up parabolically from the technical breakout as well as just the sentimental breakout that the market had. But as you can see right here, Apple trading in this range for what seemed like, ouch, forever. My microphone just ripped my whatever lack of facial hair off of my chin, that hurt. So we have a gap right above on Apple at 144, and then pretty much ending at 146. So with a daily gap, and like I said, most gaps getting filled, and we have earnings and we're anticipating earnings here. I think that there is the potential that we go, and you can see that gap gets retested in pre-market right before the bell opens, and that's what led me to believe that we would likely hold that downtrend. On the hourly, we're below the 200-day moving average, but like I said, if we can get a bounce up today or tomorrow and fill that gap, right, that we pretty much created here on the daily, and that would, like I said, require to break 144. That would likely have us fill the gap to 146.50. And if it doesn't, it has that almost bear flag like type look where you could potentially take Apple at the low of day with the potential first target, obvious target of 140. So, and I think that a moving average or a target to watch for a rejection is 144. So if you do end up rejecting 144 strongly, then I would suspect we'll see 140 on Apple. Otherwise, don't be surprised if you do see a breakout or at least a break in trend for Apple. So as you can see right here, it looks like that wick in pre-market not only did it retest that gap that we have here, but it also retested or tested that downtrend. And as you can see here, closing in pre-market, that's where we're at. So like I said, pretty pivotal area here. We're gonna need to see 143 or 144, excuse me, get broken in order to see a backtrack. And of course, the first target is going to be 147.50. So we'll be watching for that one on Apple. And what I can do here, if I'm looking to play this one, set a couple of different targets, right? Looking for mutual lines of respect. Pretty simple there. And then I like to go and add some alerts. Okay, let's see here. That should be good for Apple. I have no idea what my TikTok filter is. Is there one on my voice? I think one of the most, Zoom was a really great play today. And I think that if the sentiment that we've seen today continues into tomorrow, that's probably going to be one of my top watches. And then, of course, Apple falling from this level would make a whole lot of sense if it does continue to pull back. But like I said, we do have the anticipation of earnings coming up. So it's just a matter of not trying to put too much conviction. We know what we're watching for. We know where the trend is. And we just want to see where the price action and volume takes us within those guides, or within those rails, if you will. So, okay, so let's take a look at LVS. Nice. Yeah, we caught NVIDIA. We actually did play Uber, and we are going to go over Uber here on the charts here in just a second. So Las Vegas Sands going and retesting that 48 or 46 or 47.65 level on, let's go to the daily time frame here. Yuck. Okay, so that's where you would likely see a retest. And you did go fill the gap today as well, so that's, I'm sure, a relief. But you did have a gap to fill on Las Vegas Sands, which could explain the gap or the bounce up. But as you can see right here, and I'm going to pull this up, there's this support here that you just retested, and then this support that you bounced off of today. If you end up reversing tomorrow, which it doesn't really look great, at least in Las Vegas Sands case at the moment, I do see this bottom trend line, right? That one could end up being a resistance to retest, but otherwise earnings is right around the corner. It looks 2 days from now. So really it's just going to be a matter of paying attention to that. My technical analysis won't matter much here unless it doesn't end up going well, which will mean it'll likely fall back down into the $44 and $42.75 levels. So you have quite a few supply zones there. Okay, so let's see here, thinking around 45. Okay, EFOI. So what do you mean by a high squeeze? Did I get that right? EF, okay. So right off the bat, I would have told you to stay away from this ticker. Why? Because it seems like this is a pump and dump, right? So constantly. I'm really sorry, guys. I apologize. I know you don't want to listen to me yawn all night. But it seems like this one pumps, like I said, and then just dumps. And this happens continuously, time after time after time. So I think that what would have been the first mistake is just taking the trade in general. I don't know what the short float is or short interest, but just one technical indicator is not enough to take that trade. You need to find a reasonable catalyst. You need to find something that actually is going to give the stock movement to the upside, and if it didn't give it that movement, then it's not going to. Do I see a reversal candle on Uber today? No. I do see a bounce candle off of this like main little resistance, and I see a potential gap to fill at 46.34. I think that it could end up just holding this level and filling its gap to 46.24, which is also a previous support. But from there, this isn't very convicting as far as what we would like to see in a bullish trend. So. All right. Pins. So Pins actually, I saw Pins and Etsy looking pretty good today. Have this hourly downtrend right about here. And as you can see, it does appear to have broken that downtrend. Let me fix that. Also going so far as to massively wick that resistance and bounce off, so showing a whole lot of strength on Pinterest. This one climbing above the HMA and after hours or the $72 resistance. This one has broken downtrend, and I think that the run will commence or continue above $73 with the first target, of course, of 75 or 74.85, and then that $75 target. All in all, but Pinterest looks good here, but do watch for this zone that we're in between 73.50 and the zone, or the mark that we're at now is 72 for a little bit of choppiness. So. Amazon. All right. Boy, I'm tired. Okay, so again, I think that we talked about this one this morning. Yeah, we did. And I actually almost took this to the downside, like hefty. But anyway, this one ended up hitting the 34.98 level, but never really breaking. And 3,500 is a big level for Amazon. You also have to think that Amazon not only used this level, oh my gosh, as one of its main resistances in previous, going all the way back into August of last year. So almost a whole year we've spent in consolidation for Amazon. And so when it finally breaks out, it completely pulls back. And that is obviously rather disappointing for Amazon's price action. So a bounce here was highly likely, but continuation will be found above 35. I would say 35.85 is even 36, even if you just want to call it 36, but 35.85 is where I would likely see Amazon reversing or continuing to push the upside with earnings. And right now, 3,600 is where the 200-day EMA is as well, which is the only moving average here on the hourly between the HMA and the 50-day EMA. So, all right. Let's see here. We had Amazon. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do Pinterest really quick here. I'm a little bit tired, guys, if you didn't notice. I'm sorry. Oh, I think I did pins. What am I talking about? I'm sorry. Not Pinterest. What was the one? Upstart. There it is. Okay, Upstart here, daily uptrend. I had this marked out previously. Let me fix it really quick. Okay, so this is the downtrend that we've been holding on Upstart. This one actually broke that downtrend, and this channel that it was trading in right about here broke that channel and its support and retested it today, not showing much conviction or volume with that move on that retest. But in my opinion, I would say that Upstart, and like I don't know if they have any company relevant news, but I do know that earnings is coming up right around the corner here for them on August 10th. So for Upstart, in order to reclaim any type of potential bullish movement, we would need to see this one above 128, or and right now we're at 150. So 128 or even 125, being a little bit more modest on this one. But there's a big channel here for Upstart that it was trading on while it was holding the support, and that support got broken. So if you end up seeing a rejection tomorrow, watch that around 109 for a potential leg down as well, and that could be back into the $100 range. So Walmart, yeah. So yeah, you got a good point there. So Justin says if you look at most things that ran today, it was the same stocks that ran during the COVID worries: stay-at-home stocks, chip stocks, retail stocks, stream and home services. So Netflix, Peloton, Roku, Walmart, Costco, all those good stuff. So that's essentially the catalyst here that we're kind of focused on. Upstart retesting today, but like I said, it's going to need to get above 116 with the target of 122. So it's got a lot of range to run, and it doesn't have a lot of volume to do so. Okay, so I think we got that one. What's up, Daniel? That's my middle name. CLX. All right. Any other requests, guys? Because I'm about to call call it a night. I'm exhausted. But I will be up relatively early tomorrow, and I'll just hop on live whenever I'm ready to go. And we'll start YouTube live, but those of you, even if you're just in a live free Discord, I'll be in the members channel. So, so I think that Heck would be a little bit more apt to give you a better explanation on Clorox. This one actually had a wild correction. So if you see here and kind of draw this trend, yeah, so Clorox kind of fell out of that trend here, but let me pull that up just a little bit. So attempted breakout here, the 200-day EMA is what Clorox is dealing with right now. You have earnings right around the corner on August 3rd, and you also have dividends around the corner on July 27th. All that to be said, the daily candle did not hold that 200-day EMA. And if I go look at the hourly here, you can see big short happening here at the bell, and then just basically holding 50% of the entire range of Clorox here. So I would suspect if you can break 188.20 tomorrow, that you could see a potential rebound, but that was a very large rejection on Clorox. So I would imagine, let me go back out to the daily really quick. I would imagine if it can break and hold 189 or even the 190 mark and hold it, which is the most important thing here, then you may see an actual break and downtrend here for Clorox. So PLXP Pharma, looks like you're just making little different dojis here day after day. Let's look at the hourly. To be honest with you, this is wonky as hell, and I really don't think this one listens to patterns at all. Yeah, PLXP, this one's wild, swappy. It did double bottom here off of that linear support, so watch for a retest off of 1615 on PLXP for a bounce anyway. Other than that, I mean, I can draw a support, but the price action on this is super duper wonky. I've never even heard of it before. Alright, sorry you guys can probably see my eye. I'm a little tired, Daniel. Alright, that looks like it's it. Alright guys, I will be, it's running in news. Okay. Honestly, anywhere above that HMA, so the break of $18 would likely be that main target for PLXP. So, all right, guys, I am absolutely exhausted. I'm about to pass out. Hopefully, I'll be on around 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So if you guys are early, you guys can hop on as well. But thank you guys for dropping in, leaving a like on the video, and yeah, catch you guys tomorrow morning. Yeah, you too. Have a good night, Swappy. All right. All right. Peace out, guys.